Welcome, critters. I'm Claire Jones, your devoted host of the Sacred Reading CR podcast, where we discuss and examine Critical Role episodes, plot lines, characters, and players through the lens of sacred reading practices. This particular episode is about Campaign 1, Episode 19, Part 2, and joining me today is Atlas. Dun, 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 dun.
Hi, y'all.
All right, so the icebreaker for today is, what's your feel-good movie?
Okay. Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron.
Yeah.
Because the movie is fantastic, the animation is fantastic, and it's just one of those stories where the good guy wins.
We all need those, right?
Yep. Plus the soundtrack is just like, that's my workout soundtrack. It just goes the way that I need it to go. So yeah, that's my go-to.
Movie and TV show soundtracks are strangely motivating for workout playlists.
Some of the best are like the Lord of the Rings, because it makes you feel like you're on the epic adventure.
Yeah. I use the Witcher
motivator.
soundtrack, and it feels like I'm like fighting monsters.
Yeah. Also, like How to Train Your Dragon, because who doesn't want to be training to ride a dragon?
Yeah.
Yeah. Stuff like that.
Exactly.
That's great.
Yeah, my feel-good movie is actually the original animated Beauty and the Beast, like the Disney OG, not the Emma Watson.
No, we pretend that the live action remakes do not exist in this house.
Yes, exactly. Like, I probably can recite that film from memory, like word for word.
I mean, that one's up there for me too, if only because I want the library.
Right? Like, every book nerd possible has that in their top 5 movies.
Yeah, also when I was a kid, she was one of the few princesses who was brunette and not blonde.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I latched onto that hard as a kid.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It mattered to me.
Yeah. I mean, like, I can't claim the brunette, but I feel like she was the one Disney princess that had a brain in that time frame. Like, it was pre-Brave, pre-Moana, pre-Mulan even, you know, these like stronger feminine characters. And so like Belle, I think, was the OG.
It was like one of those like early Renaissance films that actually felt like the princess was doing things.
Yeah.
Had
like
some agency in her story.
Totally. Agency, and also like this whole like seeing the best in people despite physical appearances, like that also I think resonated with me as at a very early age, because you know I do love people of all shapes and sizes and mannerisms and behaviors, and I mean, sure, Stockholm syndrome totally exists, but at the same time love triumphs over all.
Plus she just had pretty clothes and I wanted all of them.
Yeah, and like A+ side characters too, like Mrs. Potts. I could hang with Mrs. Potts.
Oh yeah, I love Mrs. Potts.
Yeah. All right, well, please join us as we embark on this exciting adventure in story analysis and self-reflection as we deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. So as always, we love hearing your own insights and stories as well, so please comment, like, share, subscribe, all of those verbs below. Ready? All right, let's dive in. Vox Machina have been split into 2 groups as part of a double contract offered by the Slayers taken Vasselheim. The first group comprised of Vex, Percy, Grog, Scanlan, and 2 guest characters, Zara the Red Tiefling Warlock and Lyra the Human Wizard, have journeyed to the north in search of their quarry, an adult white dragon. In the first half of this episode, they found the dragon's lair and were spotted by him. Then he beckoned them forward as a result, not letting them stealth their way in. Vex prepares by putting Percy's hand grenade into a bag with a diamond and hands it to Scanlan, who leads the group into the lair. They spy the dragon's wealthy hoard embedded into the walls of ice surrounding them as they enter, and Grog, Scanlan, and Zara approach the dragon. Zara flatters him, and Scanlan tells him that they come with an offering of a diamond as an apology for sending the previous guild members who died trying to kill him for their contract. The The dragon approaches and investigates the diamond, telling them that it's a measly offering. Scanlan says that there's a bigger diamond in the pouch, but they want to secure their safe passage before they hand it over. The dragon says that they trespass in his domain and have annoyed him, asking how they got past his giant guardians. They argue back and forth for a little bit. Scanlan saying that he is called Burt Reynolds and he takes great offense to the dragon's attitude. The dragon tells him that he has not lived 1,000 years to become the hunted. He is the hunter, and parts of them will adorn his walls. He calls the giants to his side, and Zara uses her mind connection with the giants to try and persuade them to their side once again, while Vex casts Hunter's Mark on the dragon. Zara rolls a 27 on her persuasion check, and the giants pledge their assistance. That's when they roll for initiative, Lyra rolling a -1. Percy goes first and pulls out bad news to take a headshot at the dragon, but misses. He spends his action surge, I can never say that, action surge to shoot again successfully. Vex casts lightning arrow and uses her blazing bow to shoot him twice successfully. Rhymefang, the dragon, casts intimidating presence, causing Vex, Grog, Percy, Trinket, and one of the giants to become frightened. Grog rages to break the fear and then runs to the other side of the lair, barely missing another ice pit trap. Zara casts Hex and Witch Bolt on the dragon. Scanlan casts Eye Bite on him, but he uses legendary resistance to autosave. The afraid giant successfully breaks its fear while the other approaches the dragon to strike twice with its great axe. Lyra casts Disintegrate, but it saves to take half damage. Afraid Percy uses bad news again, but misses. And Afraid Vex shoots 2 arrows, 1 successful and 1 miss. Trinket shakes off his fear. Rhymefang uses a legendary action to do a wing attack against the giant in front of him, then unleashes a torrent of freezing dragon's breath to hit Percy, Lyra, and 1 giant. Percy and Lyra succeed on their saving throws and take half damage, while the giant takes the full brunt and dies. Grog runs up to the dragon and hits him with his Firebrand Warhammer in a frenzied rage, successful on all 3 hits. Zara uses Witch Bolt again. Scanlan casts Bigby's hand to punch the dragon in the face, then places the hand grenade at its feet. The remaining giant tries to hit the dragon, but misses. Lyra casts Hold Monster, but he uses another legendary resistance to autosave. Percy takes another shot at him successfully and then uses Second Wind to heal a bit. The dragon uses a legendary action to hit Scanlan with his tail and rolls a natural 20, dealing 34 damage, as well as hitting the grenade at Scanlan's feet. It causes Grog and Scanlan to roll dexterity saving throws, but they take half damage while the dragon takes full. The successful engineering feat causes Percy to shake off his fear, and Vex shoots an exploding arrow with her blood-seeking bow at the dragon, causing Grog and Scanlan to roll dexterity saving throws again. Percy yells, "Sorry, I'm a genius. Sorry, God, I'm clever." Trinket uses 2 claw attacks against the dragon successfully, and Rhymefang uses a legendary action to move away, but Scanlan uses his Warcaster feat to make Bigby's hand grapple him and bring him back down. He says, "You leave Burt Reynolds when Burt Reynolds tells you to leave." The dragon then makes all of his multi-attacks against Scanlan in retaliation, causing him to fall unconscious on the first hit. The second hit makes him lose 2 death saving throws, but Grog immediately shoves a health potion into his mouth to heal him back up to 19 HP, and then slides Scanlan across the ice floor towards Lyra. Zara uses Witch Bolt again, but the dragon uses a legendary action to wing attack Grog, Trinket, and the giant to knock them prone. Scanlan dimension doors the fuck out of there to the other side of the lair, and then takes another healing potion. This giant finally hits the dragon with a successful attack. Lyra casts Hold Monster again, and he uses his last legendary resistance to autosave, and Percy does another headshot to give him disadvantage on his attacks. Trinket moves away from the dragon to hide further down the tunnel. Then Vex casts Hail of Thorns to shoot an arrow successfully. Grog has to roll another dexterity saving throw and takes half damage, but the dragon and the giant fail their throws. She misses on her second arrow, and the giant switches sides to join the dragon after getting injured. Rhymefang moves to fly onto an upper platform in the lair, breathing a freezing breath onto Percy, Lyra, and Vex. Vex and Percy take 54 points of damage, but Lyra takes half. Grog sees that the giant has turned and goes to attack him instead, killing him off. Zara uses Witch Bolt again. Scanlan uses a bonus action to take a healing potion and casts Lightning Bolt at the dragon, who then uses a legendary action to tail attack Percy and knocks him unconscious. Lyra fireballs the dragon, hits Percy, and causes him to fail one death saving throw. He then takes his turn and fails another death saving throw. Vex uses a lightning arrow and a regular on her second attack. Rhymefang lets out another spray of ice breath onto Lyra, Vex, and Zara, causing Lyra to go unconscious, but Zara uses Hellish Rebuke and kills the dragon off. The crowd goes wild, and Zara describes this epic finish with her tiefling fire. Then Scanlan casts Seeming on himself to give him the appearance of Aldor and runs over to Lyra to heal her with a healing potion, and they make out for a bit, while Grog goes and gives a potion to Percy. Vex gives Zara a big hug while Scanlan and Lyra have a moment. They have a thing. Percy reads off all of the parts they are supposed to harvest from the dragon for their contract, and Zara spends some time extracting them after Scanlan inspires her with some excited babbling. She suffers some cold damage from the body as she goes, and they discover that the heart is too big for their bag of colding, so they wrap it in some robes to carry. Grog loots the giant while the rest of the group tries to pilfer some scales for themselves and then investigate the rest of the lair for more shinies. Vex finds some stuff and Lyra uses her firebolt to release it all, giving them 4,244 gold pieces, 850 gold pieces worth of gems, a 1,500 gold piece diamond, a pair of gloves of missile snaring, a leather hat of disguise, and a potion of climbing. Like, talk about a hoard, right? They also find a Dragon Slayer sword and quiver on two of the frozen corpses, discovering an arrow of dragon slaying as well. The layer starts dripping around them, though, and they realize that their magical contract's runes have faded as a sign that they have completed it successfully, so they decide to trek back down the mountain. A day and a half's worth of travel brings them back to Vasselheim. They enter the city and make their way to the Slayers Take Guild Hall, where Merton is in the middle of playing a card game. Vex hands him the bag, and he is incredulous that they succeeded, demanding to see the contract. He reads it and then shakes Lyra's hand, telling her, well done. She starts crying and hugs him in thanks, but he says she lost him 200 gold pieces in a bet against them. The headmaster, Vanessa, enters and does a slow clap for them, then demands her 200 gold piece bet from her husband. Lyra starts crying again as Vanessa asks them all to join the Slayers Take, including Trinket. Grog asks if they get to work with another leader next time, and the rest of them interrupt and say that they would never work with anyone else. Lyra says thanks to Scanlan for making her realize that she needs to experiment more sexually in order to give Aldor what he wants. He offers to help her, and she declines politely, saying she'd rather have him as a friend. Zara tells the headmaster to take care of Lyra, and she says she will help her not make a complete fool of herself. Vanessa then asks for the dragon parts, which they do provide, and Zara asks who the contract is for. Percy and Lyra recognize the name as someone who is in the Arcana Pansophical, which is the same arcane collective that Alora Vysoren is involved with. The headmaster pays them 9,000 gold pieces for the contract and tells them that they will be inducted once their other group members return and their criminal charges absolved. Lyra refuses her portion of the gold, and Vanessa teases her that she'll take hers back, but then the group objects and she relents. Lyra thanks Vanessa for sending them on this very difficult task, especially after sending another group who failed. And while she does appreciate the confidence, she wondered what Vanessa could have been thinking. Vanessa explains and apologizes, saying that the dragon has been a thorn in their side for a while now. And that's when they all take their leave and end the episode. So what do we think of the second half?
There's lots of little bits in the second half that are just make me so happy and become staples of the campaign, even if they never show up again.
Yeah.
Which I love. One of my favorites is Percy throwing off fear because his grenade works. He's just such an engineer at heart, and I love him for it. It's adorable, and we go into the next arc after this, and he gets, pretty far down a dark path, and we kind of lose that sense of creativity and wonder that he
Mhm.
has. And it plays in more later in the campaign, but I love seeing it this early because
Mhm.
then we know what we're losing when we see him
Mhm.
start to turn in the next arc. Um, and it makes me so happy to see the mad scientist in him kind of show
Mhm.
up for a little bit, and to see him just so excited about something that he made that works, even though he's got, his two guns that he created that are technological marvels, but he gets so excited about this tiny little grenade that he threw together out of parts that he had on the road. Anyway,
Mhm.
it makes me very happy to see Percy be this kind of Percy before we see where he goes next.
I mean, it shows his playful side that very often gets buried in his
Mm-hmm.
like he's been through a lot up until this point in his
Yeah.
backstory, like more than I would say the rest of the group has, to be
Mm-hmm.
completely honest.
Yeah. I think he's also one of two characters that really get lost in popular fandom interpretations.
Mm,
He's always kind of that dark and brooding, and that tends to be where fandom sees him.
mm,
But he's not. He didn't start that way. He doesn't
mhm,
end that way. It's just his most popular arc revolves around that.
mhm,
So I like watching the campaign and seeing the parts of him that are so often forgotten
mm,
by the people who are, looking at this campaign down the line.
mm.
We have had years in between, and it's so easy, especially if you're not going back to rewatch hundreds of hours of content, to lose the pieces of these characters that make them into something other than a one note, um, simplification of themselves.
Yeah, I'm a total Percy stan. I love
I
Percy
mean,
as a
same.
character. And he's not verbose in his character expression either. Like he
Mhm.
tends to take a back seat with most of the group dynamics that are going on because there's louder characters in the group. There's Scanlan who's loud, there's Tiberius who's loud right now. Even Keyleth gets loud in her own way, and Vex kind
Mhm.
of has her spotlight when it comes to like the bartering and the charming and the cajoling that she does a lot of the time. And even Grog gets his like time in the spotlight as like the group's tank, as the
Right.
very physically loud barbarian that he is. And Percy often doesn't really participate much in the hijinks nature of the rest of the group. Like he's kind of the dad.
A little bit, and that kind of continues. He'll jump in once in a while, but most of the time he's like the standoffish.
Mm-hmm.
He views himself as the only adult in the room, and he plays that part.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like it's central to his character for the entire campaign, and I get that, but I love seeing him let go a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. And I think you're right. I love all of these little character vignette moments that we're seeing in
Mm-hmm.
these episodes. Like even Percy, he really tries to give the gloves of missile snaring to Vex in this episode. Like he really wants to have her get this item, and
Yeah.
like her exploding arrows that he makes for her. And he's always giving in a certain sense. It's just not often highlighted in the rest of the group's dynamics.
Yeah, at this point he very much does not want to be the main character ever. And
Yeah.
I kind of wonder if that plays into having, what was it, six siblings?
7, I think.
I think, yeah, I don't know, six or seven. I don't remember if there were seven of them or if he had seven siblings. Doesn't matter. There were a lot of kids. I could Google it, but I'm not going to. Uh, Having a family that large and being kind of one of the younger ones.
You're right, he has 6. I just Googled it.
I was totally guessing, so it all works out. But being one of the younger siblings in a family that large, it's so much easier to just try to blend in, disappear, and not bring attention to yourself. You're not the youngest, you're not the oldest. You just need to stay below the radar, and you can get away with anything. And with the tinkering tendencies that Percy has, getting away with anything is more important than just about anything else. And this is very similar to my own brother, which is why I know this. But like, his whole goal as a middle child with pyromaniac tendencies was to fly below the radar for as long as possible so he could do the weirdest experiments in his shed. And then he would only get in trouble when he was done and he had figured out what he wanted to know. I feel that very much in Percy right now. He's trying to pull that off.
Yeah. I mean, because he hasn't yet dealt with the full brunt of his trauma, and he's just kind of burying his shame.
Yeah. Like his whole strategy right now is to avoid it.
Yeah. But it's coming for him, and we shall see the development of that
soon.
Another character that I think also had a large role in this half of the episode is not technically a character, but like the role of chat in the community, I think is something that I noticed as well in shaping their games, their characters, their company, their brand. We've talked a little bit about like how the Critical Role brand is very rapidly growing at this point in time, at this point in the campaign, and the players have started to keep chat open on their phones during the actual games that they're playing live. And so there's like this instant feedback that also happens during these episodes. And this particular portion, the chat had some comments about Laura's favorite enemy, which is dragons, and Matt even looked it up in stream and being like, no, chat, you're wrong, but thanks.
Yeah.
But it impacts the way that they play the game.
It does. I mean, in this case, very literally, because the community is the people who chose the white dragon. Yeah. So it's beyond just the immediate feedback. They're also choosing the encounters at this point, which they do a couple more times.
I mean, even in the most recent campaign, they've been choosing. Oh no, sorry, never mind. But I was thinking about Laura and Travis's son choosing the.
I mean, yeah.
Does he count?
Not really, but kind of. Yeah. I don't know.
There is definitely this feedback between them.
Right. And it's interesting to see that oscillate a little bit. They go from not seeing it at all to seeing it maybe a little too much. And they've definitely dipped back down to, especially because they're not recording live at this point, having a little bit of space. And I think that space serves them better, but it is interesting to see them interact more directly with the chat in these early episodes.
Yeah, because I mean, this is the era where they did like dance games after stream,
right,
and they like opened their presents that they got from fans on stream and have these like Q&A sessions with people, like, because this is also pre-Vox Machina as well. So they were experimenting with ways to connect with their community that felt authentic and genuine, but also promoted the brand as a brand.
Yeah. Well, and like this specific episode, there's a solid 20 minutes of the YouTube video at the end that are just them thanking people for donating to their preferred charity and, you know, making those kind of connections, which is fine, but I'm really glad we moved away from that.
Yeah. When I saw how long the episode was, I was like, oh no, I don't have time.
I was not prepared for it to end when it did. So there was still like a half hour left on my timer.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was like, I appreciate that those were great community building techniques. I am so glad we don't do them anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I find it fascinating from a business perspective, and I think that Critical Role is such a fascinating case study when it comes to the realm of taking a very imperfect, informal, ad hoc, grassroots game between friends and making it into a multi-million-dollar corporate identity entity. Now
Right.
the path just absolutely fascinates me, and I don't think they would have gotten to the place that they are today if they didn't start with this integration of the community early on, because we also see that when it comes to like fan art. There's been a lot of talk about the impact of fan art over the years, like even fan fiction. Like if you go to AO3 and you
It is
look
one of
for
the
like,
biggest
right,
in
like when you
AO3.
look for Critical Role ships in particular compared to like books who have sold like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of copies, like Critical Role has them beat.
Yeah, it has such a huge portion of AO3 content. It is ridiculous. I mean, I love it because the content well is never ending, but oh my gosh, there's so much of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And we're really starting to see that ramp up in these. I mean, we're still in the early episodes. We're still only on episode 19. And like just in campaign 1, they have like what, 150?
115.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I mean, we've got hundreds of episodes to go. And we're already seeing like such community involvement, and that is their priority. They are focused on building that. Which is impressive. But also like they make some steps here that very clearly are hard to come back from when they decide that maybe they need to step back a little bit in like 6-7 years. But they're starting stuff now that's really going to affect how the community views them. In we're 9 years in now. We're starting year 9.
8, yeah. They had their 8-year anniversary last month.
Like there's just so much that starts back here.
Foreshadowing.
Story-wise, company-wise, it is fascinating all the way.
Because I think it also speaks to D&D as a system as well, because it is such a grassroots effort, like from party to party to party. Like it's a collaboration game. Like you can't really get away from the game mechanics of it being like that. And I think everything aligns perfectly when you think of it in that way, like macro to micro. There's similarities every level. Well, what personal experiences are we thinking of with this?
One of the things that struck me about this episode is it's one of their few unencumbered victories. It's one that doesn't follow them. It doesn't start something bigger than them. It is just a clean win. Nobody dies. Nobody, has to be brought back. It is. They don't have many of those in the story. And so something that got me thinking about in terms of how it relates to like my personal life is, when was the last time that an accomplishment just felt good and didn't lead to more responsibilities, more expectations, or a new problem to solve? When was it just an accomplishment? And I think it's been a while. But it brought me back to things like graduating from grad school and things like that, where it was like that was the end goal. And sure, that sparks go get a job and be an adult, but that was a very solid, like, at the end of these 2 years, I will have accomplished a thing that I can be proud of, and I can be, that is the end of it. That is all I need to do. I have that for the rest of my life, and I can just hold on to it and just have that. And they see fewer and fewer of those victories that don't have ties as the story goes on. And it feels very accurate to life.
Yeah, man. I mean, you just talking about that makes me like feel so heavy. Because I don't think I can come up with an example either of like a win that hasn't had that heft associated with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you start going back and back and back. It's been a while. Yeah, it feels like that kind of carries on for Critical Role, as this campaign, as a company, as it just covers all of the bases. But I feel like a lot of people understand that those kind of victories are rare, and they play into our day-to-day lives and kind of affect how we go through things. So it was nice to see, and it made me think a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's fascinating. I have so many thoughts on that. Like, one, I was surprised to see Matt not use auto crits for the unconscious states in this episode. Like, if he was using standard D&D rules in this episode, both Percy and Scanlan would be dead.
Yeah. I kind of wonder if that's still a holdover. They're still dealing with some holdovers from Pathfinder.
That's what I think it is.
And I think Matt is still learning 5e at this point.
Yeah.
And I think that probably is what's going on.
Yeah. And so I was surprised to see that, but you're right in the sense of like, without those rules having influence in this particular episode, it is very much a clean win. You're on point with that. And it's interesting because it does lead to this confidence building, to this sense of accomplishment that they walk away with. And like, even though the wrap up of the episode is very rushed because Matt wants to get them back and get that wrapped up before he moves on to the second group for the trial, but it still feels like a very clean win. Like, Zara was just celebrated, like the crowd went wild in that room when Zara had that I can't even remember the name of it at the moment, but her fire reaction,
hellish rebuke,
thank you. And you're right in the sense of like, I honestly can't think of the last time that I had like a unattached win. In the business world and in the personal development world, we spend a lot of time and energy and money, honestly, talking and engaging with this whole like positive thinking thing out there. It's like, you have to, the secrets and like manifestation and speaking what you want into reality is such a big force in the world of business ownership and entrepreneurship, because it's a mindset shift for sure. But I think it also contributes to this tendency to treat, because we're supposed to like track our daily wins and be like, look at all these ways that we're winning to help our brains win more. And it's kind of just activating the reticular activating system. I can get into neuroscience with that, but I'm not going to here. But the point is, we put so much weight on these wins as an indication that we're winning at life at large, right? And I think that almost overtaxes the wins.
I think that's very fair. Yeah, I think a lot of like the wins that I've had more recently have all come with, great, you've done that, now you can do this. And it's, you're fulfilling your goals and you're moving up in your career or your life, or you're doing the things that you want to do, but it always leads to something else, or there's a cost to it, or there's some drawback that makes it feel less like a win and more like a stepping stone.
Yes, a leveling up. Like, as you were talking, I was thinking of like the gamification. Like, we're basically like gamifying life.
yeah there's not many of these that aren't a stepping stone to something else.
Yeah, and like that can be exhausting too at the end of the day.
It absolutely is.
Because you also, like, at a certain point, you don't want to win anymore, because winning just means more responsibility, more questions, more concerns, more tasks, whatever that more is.
And the way it's currently set up, there's no room to breathe in between. You've got to carry that momentum on to whatever this was a stepping stone to. So there's no time to celebrate. There's no time to have that Zara moment of being the star of the show for 5 minutes. It's just, great, you did it, now what?
Yeah.
And that in itself is emotionally exhausting.
Yeah.
Which doesn't help the physical exhaustion of never stopping, never resting.
Yeah.
It all adds up to make it harder and harder.
Yeah. I mean, even if you do stop to rest and you consider resting as a win, that still puts so much weight on the rest itself.
At which point it's no longer restful.
Right? And I was just thinking about that. And I was like, well, I guess I won by like giving myself time off when I deserve it. And I'm like, but then that just leads to more.
Yeah.
Oh, this is gonna plague me. Thanks. I hate it. Thanks.
Very glad I could share my angst with you, because it has been bugging me so much.
Oh, lovely. Well, what are we gonna do now?
I think what this episode really took me to is focusing on the little moments. You know, taking the time to recognize the special moments with friends or with family or in my accomplishments, and internalizing those, because that's so much of what made this episode special, was the little moments. You know, all those things that build into something great, a story, or killing a dragon. It's all about the little moments that become something more. So I think what my goal from this is I'm gonna kind of slow down and try to pay more attention to those than to pay attention to what I need to do next. And kind of draw the momentum from the things that are making it special, rather than from the need to get to the next step.
Yeah. I mean, who would think of slaying a dragon as a little win? But I think it applies in this.
But in the context of this story.
Yeah. I mean, I need to find something to win at that doesn't have consequences attached to it. That's what I need to do.
My current goal is hobby related. Doesn't involve any fallbacks. Like, there's just learn a new thing for my hobby that I can incorporate later.
Yeah. Like, I'm trying to think of I'm gonna have to think of that, honestly. It's like, what is something that I can gain a sense of accomplishment from and feel like I have won, mark it down as a V for victory, but also doesn't ask that I add more things as a result of the win. That's tricky.
It's hard.
Yeah. Especially as adults, because we're responsible for everything.
And you can't escape any of it.
Yeah. I'm going home to visit family next week, and I'm like so looking forward to just have like my mom wait on me.
I was home last weekend, and the nicest thing was that I didn't have to cook for myself the entire time.
Yeah. She's like, all right, where do you want to go shopping? And I'm like, you're taking me shopping.
Yeah.
She's like, and we're going to this restaurant and that restaurant. And I'm like, okay, great. This is going to be wonderful.
Yeah. My mom was like, I have your favorite meal in the crock pot. It'll be ready when you get here. It was so nice.
Yeah. Thanks, Mom. Hashtag thanks, Mom.
Moms are the best.
Well, let's dedicate this episode to moms then. I will definitely dedicate this episode to moms.
Sounds good to me. They deserve it.
All right. So anything you want to add before we wrap up?
Nope. I've shared my enjoyment and my angst. I'm good.
We got to balance. It's all about balance. All right. Well, this is powerful stuff that we're talking about here. And audience, we definitely encourage you to share your own insights and stories and feelings with us as well. We'd love to know how Critical Role has shaped your lives. So special thanks to Alice for joining me on this episode. It's been a pleasure. Per usual.
Oh, yeah. It's always good to be here.
Yeah. And next time we'll be discussing Campaign 1, Episode 20. We're hitting the 2-0. Next time, part 1, and joining me will be Petal for that. And I'm looking for more co-hosts and guests as always. So if you're interested in coming on, hit me up. I'll send you the link. In the meantime, please comment, like, subscribe, follow us on Tumblr at Sacred Reading CR. And until next time, may all beings be peaceful, may all beings be free, and always, always, always remember to love each other. Take care, guys.
Bye.